Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man issue number 1 that came out this week. Not to be confused with The Amazing Spider-Man number 1 that came out some months back. This is basically just an extra story in the same continuity as The Amazing Spider-Man. So this is the introduction to the Spider-Verse event. So they're basically doing another Spider-Verse event where they're crossing over multiple characters together. And it makes me wonder what they're going to be doing with the Amazing Spider-Man next week, where they're introducing the Hobgoblin again. I'm assuming they're probably going to do like a prequel story to what's happening to him right now to explain what happened in the 6 months ago event. And this is like what's happening in the now events for him. Now, if that sounds confusing, it is. They like to make it that way. Anyways, the story starts off with Peter Parker narrating himself. It shows off a little bit of his origin story, just a single page. And then it quickly summarizes to what's currently happening in his life, where he has that new job, where he's actually hired by Norman Osborn. And then a transition to Peter Parker being on the phone with Norman Osborn at that very same moment. Norman is asking if Peter can suit up in his outfit that he made for him and go protect one of his Oscorp trucks that's like being hijacked at the moment. But Peter's like, yo, what the hell? You're tracking me? How do you know where I am? And Osborn's just like, dude, I know where you live. I know how long it takes you to get here and there. It's not rocket science, man. I'm also a genius, after all. But of course, Spider-Man suits up and gets ready to help out Osborn with his hijacking. And I thought it was funny because somehow Osborn made it so that he has Spider-Man as a hired gun in a very subtle way. And then we cut to the Oscorp truck that's being hijacked by the criminals. And they're on the run. They're shooting at cops that are directly behind them. They're being chased. And this is the second time Spider-Man uses the jetpack thing to actually just do something in general. And in this case, he uses it to just deactivate the car so that the steering and the brakes are gone, basically. These guys can't do anything. It's jammed going forward. And in the Spider-Man fashion, there just so happened to be a mom and her daughter in the way of the truck. And then this next page I thought was super hilarious because Spider-Man, of course, swings by, saves this mom and daughter, and then they show these criminals just ramming the truck into the wall. Like, blatant disregard for their lives. I thought that was pretty funny. But, of course, when the goons get out of the truck, in the artwork, they make sure to show off how the guy that was in front of the truck gets out and points his gun at Spider-Man. Telling us that, of course, after ramming the truck and squishing the front, like, the guy just somehow is still alive. Alright. We get to pretty comic booky levels here. Or not comic booky levels. This feels like I want to say like a cartoon. Like, with a cartoon you can sort of extend your notion of reality. So like, this guy probably has like 100 HP, right? Full health, and then ramming into this truck, he's basically at like 5 HP, but, enough to go on and attempt to fight Spider-Man, I guess. And some random kid calls him out. He's like, yo, everyone, superhero fight. So a crowd gathers up to watch Spider-Man beat the shit out of these criminals. And some kids are also playing like street music while Spider-Man is beating the shit out of these people. And classic Spider-Man, as he's going off on them, he gives them a lesson on the hyphenated part in his name. Because everyone keeps just saying Spider-Man without the hyphen. Because Spider-Man is a very picky person when it comes to the hyphen in between Spider-Man. After he finishes webbing up the criminals, he calls in the detective and tells him that he webbed up a few hijackers. And some kid is just like live streaming everything. He makes a point to say that he's monetizing everything. And Spider-Man's like, yeah, I can't complain. I used to do that too. Which, he monetized beating the shit out of people when he sold pictures to the Daily Bugle. And then he has the spider walk up to the kids that were playing the music and tips them $1. And they're like, what the hell? Only $1? that cheap robot. And of course, Spider-Man's a broke motherfucker. This is probably all he has. He's giving it to you guys. And in the next panel, we reveal that the villain of this Spider-Verse story is observing this Spider-Man. They make it a point that she has killed or has turned over as her own personal army other spider beings of other universes, and that she feels the need that she's ready to finally take out the main Spider-Man from this specific universe. So Shathra opens her mouth and sends out like an army of wasps to attack the city that he's in. And then we cut over to the hidden away secret corner of the Spider-Verse, where there's just this spider sanctuary. It just looks like a church in New York, but secret hidden away universe, I guess. Where Spider UK, Anya, and Madam Web are talking about how 616 Peter is finally getting attacked by Shathra. And Spider UK comes up with the idea to summon, to open this portal to summon this creature to help, because it's their biggest gun, right? Or as you're reading it, you don't know who it is. But they do explain it in a moment. We cut to a page where Osborn is on the phone with Peter Parker, and Spider-Man's asking like, yo, can I leave the scene now? I've been here too long. And Osborn makes it a point that he doesn't want the contents of the truck to be confiscated by government officials. That he wants Spider-Man to talk them into just outright having Osborn pick it up, or leaving it still in their possession. This pretty much leaves it as a potential plot point for whatever the next set of The Amazing Spider-Man comics are going to be like. But in this specific one, we're dealing with the Spider-Verse. And of course, because they like to add on more problems to Spider-Man's life, they decide to open... the next page decides to open a portal, and that's where all of Shathra's wasps are teleporting into. It's this very scene. So all the wasps are stinging everyone and just running amok. And then another portal opens up, and this supposed villain called Morlun walks in. He looks like a fucking vampire. And Spider-Man instantly whips into action and starts beating into this dude, because he's like so sure that this villain is gonna just end him right away. That's how powerful he is. And Spider-Man is like genuinely afraid of him. So he's not giving him a chance to even react by just repeatedly pounding into him. Which I think that part of action storytelling, I really like that. It's pretty cool. But of course, Morlun is like too powerful, so he just backhands Spider-Man. But Spider-Man sends in his little jetpack spider to electrocute Morlun. But he just takes it off, squishes it, tosses it aside, and Morlun is basically just trying to get Spider-Man's attention. He's legitimately just trying to talk to him. He's not gonna do anything, but he's afraid for his life. I'm sure he has like PTSD from some past event. So this makes sense. But he's not allowing him to talk. He just completely goes at him again until he realizes that all of his attacks, as much as he's putting into it, he's not doing anything to him. He just stops and acknowledges the fact that, yeah, he's fucked, dude. And because I read the story, I know that this particular moment would have been a good time for Morlun to start saying what he wanted to say, right? But as you're reading it, you completely forget in all this cool action that he's trying to say something. So what does he do? He grabs Spider-Man and just freaking tosses him aside and just completely beats the shit out of him, to the point where, his mask is just completely off. And this is where Miles and Silk come in and try to hold back Morlun from doing any more damage to Spider-Man. And then in another panel, Spider-Woman shows up and she starts zapping Morlun like crazy. Everyone starts jumping on Morlun like crazy. But during this chaos, we get a panel that shows one of the wasps stinging Silk. So slowly throughout the story, they're just stinging each one of these spider characters. Randomly, another portal shows up, right? Because they're like, oh, how many more spider heroes can show up to beat the fuck out of Marlin before he does any damage. So Spider-Man Noir shows up, and they're like, oh man, are we gonna get some other spider friends showing up? And Noir's like, don't bet on it, kid. Because at this point, if you're reading it for the first time, if you haven't read the Spider-Verse story, you don't know that this dude's basically a villain at this point. So they're like excited that he shows up to help, but he's like, yeah dude, I'm just gonna mess things up. And then they show a panel where Peter Parker's getting stung by one of the wasps, and he notices in the corner of his eye that Spider-Man Noir pulls out his weapon, and it's not his usual weapon, which is a gun. Nah, he pulls out this very specific looking weapon, and he grabs Spider-Woman and just stabs her in the stomach. And everyone's just watching this happen, including Marlin, who still has web on his mouth. And we watch Spider-Woman just die. They explain it as like getting erased from the web or something like that, which I'm just gonna take it as like, yeah dude, they just killed off Spider-Woman. And then Spider-Man Noir is like sneaking up on Peter. He goes in for it and tries to like stab him too, and Marlin jumps in and punches him out of the way with his brute strength. And this is basically the backup that they send, that Spider UK sent to help Peter Parker in this scenario. But you know, it would have been so okay. First up, it would have been, you know, a good chance in that spot that Marlin had to speak to Spider-Man, for him to speak. But he didn't. He just beat the shit out of him. That and Spider UK, this as a character, she should have sent like another familiar spider character that this 616 Spider-Man has encountered, right? So that way, when he sees Marlin and just another familiar Spider-Man, he wouldn't just attack. He'd be more curious than anything. Anyways, yeah, things just got horribly worse the moment Marlin decided to just beat the shit out of Peter. But it's the end of the story. This is the part where they reveal that Marlin was just the backup sent to try to help out. And Spider-Man Noir turns into like this wasp humanoid looking character with his usual jacket and hat. He looks pretty cool. I like this. And he basically explains how there's someone very high in the food chain who basically either wants you taken out or joining their forces. And everyone's like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Why would we do that? And he's like, that's what they all say. And he reveals through 3 different portals other universe Spider-Man that have already been corrupted. And we get what I'm assuming to be Spider-Girl. I could be wrong, but I believe that's corrupted Spider-Girl. We get Spider-Punk and Spider-Gwen. And then this like wasp Spider-Noir character basically reveals how they're basically all fucked. So I'm kind of genuinely interested in what the hell's gonna happen next. That was a great story. It was full of good comic book action. Like, that part with Marlin just outright beating the shit out of Peter Parker. That was good comic book action. Because that feels like something they really would have done in the old comics. Just, you know, to pad out some time. But in a good comic booky kind of way. Where they just make it so that they're introducing more characters as fights are happening. So, you know, that stuff still has to happen. I'm glad it's not in a boring way. But overall, it's a great issue. I heavily enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what happens next. But anyways, if you enjoyed me talking about this comic, and if you want to hear me cover it more in like 2 weeks, or whenever the next issue releases, then just like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.